Hi guys, if you want to learn how to make these adorable earrings and this beautiful necklace from the Seabed Secrets, keep watching. Hi guys, I'm back. So I've been playing with a little bit of the beads from the Seabed Secrets Curated Beadbox, and I was playing with some components. I'm probably going to cut these apart because I didn't wrap them together. But I'm going to be making a wire-wrapped necklace that's going to contain components of shells for little ways, and then I'm going to finish it off with some chain. But I'm going to show you how I make these components first. So to start out, for the shells, and actually I want to do the beads first. So we're going to do the first set of beads. And then we'll do the shells, because the shells I may want to do a thinner wire. So this is going to be my component. So I'm going to take a piece of wire just a little bit longer than what I think I'm going to need, just because I always like to have a little extra. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take my looping, and I'm going to use the smallest loop. And I'm going to bend this over and get it started. I am going to put my pendant on because I do want to wire wrap around the pendant. And so what I'm going to do is I am just going to hold on to it. And I'm going to, just because I don't want it to, I'm going to put my looping pliers back on, just because I don't want it to be too tight. And I'm going to start the wrap on this. And then I'm just going to pull it up just a hair. And sometimes you might need to have a second pair of pliers to do this. Just a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap it around the wire. So I'm using 20 gauge dead soft wire, and I am going to twist this, trying to keep them together as tight as I can possibly get it. All right. So that's the first one. We're going to have two attached to that. So this isn't going to go anywhere. This is definitely on there. That's not going to come apart. When you're doing wire wrapping, you want to make sure, and that's going to bug me that it's not completely round. You want to make sure that you don't have any sharp ends. You wouldn't want it to get snagged on anything. All right. So then we're going to put on, a blue and white bead, a white bone color bead, and a blue and white bead. Oh, and I'm going to lose everything. Let's try this again. Okay, so now we have that. Now, to finish off your loop on the other side, this one's going to be a little bit easier because we're going to take it just a hair above the beads. You want a little bit of a space. You don't want a ton. Don't know if you can see that very well. Just a little bit of space there. And then you're just going to pull your wire around and just keep pulling it. Wrap it once. Wrap it twice. And you have a nice perfect loop there. I'm going to cut off the excess here. Like that. And there is a little sharp piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that and just pinch it down. Like that. And it's still up, I can see it. It's really hard to do when you're trying to do this on camera. All right, so that is not going to get in the way. And then you're just going to want to put your looper pliers back in. And I'm kind of just going to give this a little bit of a bend, kind of to straighten that out. And there you go. So you have your first component on. Now I'm going to build the second component that's going to be this way. And I'm going to build it on, and I wonder if I can get, I can't get those off. We'll build another one. So again, and don't be afraid to have a little bit extra on there. You can always cut off the wire, but if you don't have enough, then you're going to have a problem, because then you're going to have to get a whole nother piece of wire. All right, and we're going to start the wrap. That is, if I can pull. Doing wire wrapping, it's best if you use pliers to do your wraps. You get a nice tight bend, and it's really hard to do when you're on camera, because I'm trying to do this, keep it in frame, and my phone is in the way. To be honest, wire wrapping's not my favorite jewelry art. I've tried it. I've done some really elegant pendants, but it's just not my thing. All right. Got that wrapped. I'm going to snip and bend that in. As tight as I can. And again, I'm rubbing my fingers over this to see if I feel sharp edges, and I don't. So that's good. Now I'm going to put my beads on. And like I said, once you get the first side on, the second side's always easier, just because you don't have a ton of stuff and you've got something to hold on to, and I can leave it on the looper. Perfect. There we go. So that's 2. So that is how it's going to hang. And again, we can adjust the direction of the loops just by twisting the wire just a little. And Again, you may have to adjust them several times depending on how they're going to hang, but there's your first two. All right, now to do the shells, the first side of the shell, I am going to use a thinner wire for that just because I want to be able to get around the shell without breaking the shell, because the shells are quite delicate. And I'm going to adjust the camera here just a little bit. So you see the shells being very delicate, I'm going to use a 24 gauge wire instead of 20. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put the wire in and I'm going to wrap it around once. And I'm going to do this pretty tightly. And I'm going to use my pliers to help me out. I'm going to stick it back through so that it's coming back out the hole on the other side. And you're going to have to fidget with this because it's a shell, so there's a lot of tight spaces in there. And then I'm just going to pull it. And make sure it's as tight as you can get it. And then this piece, I'm going to cut off here in a second. But first, I'm going to bend that, bring this guy forward, and I'm going to start to make my loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down and wrap it once. Okay, and pull that aside. Take this front wire, the short wire, wrap it around my loop just once. And being smaller wire, this is going to twist quite a bit. So don't worry about that. It will be fine here in a second. And so I'm going to take my pliers, if I can get the wire off of it, and just pull it around just once. And then I'm going to cut that little piece off because that's now nicely connected. Now, with my other loop, I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times until I have it as many times as you think you want it. And I'm going to do like 4 times there because I think that gives me a nice wrapped look. And then I'm going to cut it off. And I'm just going to tuck that end underneath. So it's in, it's out of the way. All right, so there's the first side. Now, again, this is not going to be perfect because it's a shell. So the second side, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to attach it to the already done loop before we wire wrap. So the second side, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move that up forward, take the back one, pull it tight, and wrap it back through. Making sure to keep it in the little crevice because I want to make sure it's nice and tight there. And again, you can pull it Just be careful not to break your shell. Now this one, I didn't pull enough of that, which is fine because we don't need more than just one to loop it. So now I'm going to start my loop, put it into the end, making sure the front of the pendant is facing the front of the bead. And then I am going to pull this forward to make a loop. And get this guy out of the way for a second. Start to wrap him. And then wrap this guy. Having a hard time getting my pliers around it. Okay. One thing I am going to do, if you notice, the loop is a little not round, so I am going to put my loopers in there and round it a bit. See, that looks much better. Then I think I'm going to leave my loopers in for the moment and wrap several times around with the thinner wire until I have my design. And then I'm going to cut that off and tuck it underneath. And there you go. So there's that. And again, you can adjust how they lay. I'm going to continue working on this off camera. And I will be back to show you when I've gotten all my components done. I'll be right back. Hey guys, I'm back. So it's been a few minutes for me, probably a second or two for you. I'm just finishing up my last component on this, and then we're going to be adding some chains. And I'm debating whether I want to do chain and some beads and in between, or if I want to do all chain. So I've got my last drop, and I am going to be using jump rings to attach the chain, because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to do the chain. So if I want to do pieces of chain, or if I want to do solid chain. So I am going to put on a couple of pieces of chain with jump rings, and then I'm going to see what I think. I may do piece of chain, some beads, piece of chain, or I may just do solid chain all the way up to the clasp. All right, so this is what we have so far. So we've got, whoops. And if your shell's backwards like that, it's really easy to turn it around. You can just twist the wire and it turns. So this is what the necklace looks like with the pendant. I'm thinking I may not need a ton of chain, so I'm just going to see here how it hangs against my neck. I may just do chain. So I'm going to grab my big chain and I'm going to grab some chain. I don't want that one. I do want that one. So I have some bright white chain. I don't think I want to use that. I'm going to use, oops, my standard silver chain. I think that will work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on with a jump ring. And if you're worried about it coming apart, you can always add 2 jump rings to that. I'm just going to add the one. And I think I'm going to measure against my neck. About where I want it to hang. Okay, and then I'm going to count the chains. So that's the jump ring. 1, 2, 3. Wait, jump ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we're going to count 23 on this. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And we'll cut that there. And we'll grab a jump ring and put that on. So this was a quick little easy one. When you have a big focal like the star and big beads like the shells, it makes it very easy to design some jewelry around it. I think in this video, seeing that I didn't have you sit around and watch me make the components, we'll make the earrings together to go with this, and then I will do a bracelet in the next video. So there we go. Oops, and that's backwards. And these guys are going to want to turn, but when you put them on the neck, they'll hang right. And again, you can twist them. I'm going to grab 2 more jump rings. And then a lobster claw. And I'm going to put and that is why I have no nails, because I use my fingers. Oh, come on, really? Apparently this jump ring does not want to go on the chain. But we fought, we got it, we won. All right. And there is the Seabed Secret necklace number 1. And again, these want to twist, so we'll twist them. And I'm just going to pinch that back down. There we go. Ooh, and I'm losing beads. All right, so there's number 1. What do you think of that? So, for the earrings, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 beads that are of the same, try to get them as close to the same size as possible. I think these 2 are pretty close. So what I'm going to do for the earrings is I'm going to mirror the bracelet with the wire wraps, except I'm going to use these as the drop instead of as a component. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple pieces of wire and I am going to wrap this, and actually I want that back through there. So again, we're just going to bend it up, bend the back side forward, and tuck the back side through the front toward the back, and we're going to pull it as tight as we possibly can, and then pull the front as tight as we possibly can. Make sure that you don't pull so tight that you break your shell. I mean, granted, I have extra shells, but again, if you don't have them all the same size and you happen to not have one that'll match the size that you're working with, you're going to be very unhappy. Trust me. I've done that a couple of times, not on this one. And so I'm just going to wrap the front kind of around that wire before I make my bend. I kind of learned that in the necklace while I was working off camera, that if I did this and got that nice and tight, that I could just trim this and he'd be out of the way. And I want my flat nose, so I can just tuck that in. And then we're going to make our wire wrap. And again, I'm going to wrap several times. Making sure to get it as tight as possible. And to get them as close together as possible. And if you have to, you can take your pliers and kind of scrunch it down. There. That looks good. take my flat nose, cut those off, and tuck in that side so that there is no tight or no sharp edges. And I always run my fingers across just to make sure. So there is one drop. Now let's do our other one. Now I wrap it twice. You don't have to. I just like wrapping it twice just for extra security, just to know that I've got it secure, that it's not going anywhere, that especially when I'm using 24 gauge wire, because I'm not sure there. And then this, I'm going to start wrapping close to the top because I do want a few wraps. Trying to make sure they stay close together. And because I didn't get a big wire, I'm going to use my pliers. And I'm going to scrunch those together and do one, maybe one more wrap. One more wrap, and I think we're good. And then we're going to trim and tuck that in. Now the other option you could have, instead of just tucking it in like I'm doing here into the wraps, is to put it underneath these two wires so that it kind of tucks under. So like your last wrap, you could just stick it under there. So it's entirely up to you. Keep in mind, anytime you're doing wire wrapping, you're never going to get it exactly the same. So no two wire wraps are ever going to be identical, which bugs me because I'm a perfectionist by nature. Everything has to be symmetrical. Everything has to be identical. All right. So I am going to start my wire wrap, and then I am going to hook this on. And I'm going to do my first wire wrap here before we put beads on. And I'm going to do 2 wraps, possibly 3. And then cut the remainder off, flush cut, as flush as I can get, and then just crimp that down as tight as I can get it. And there we go. So now, again, we're going to stick on a green bead, a sandy colored bead and another green and white bead. Although not all of these have green in them. And so that is going to be the earring. And then what I am going to do is I am going to put on, actually, no, just because we can open the ear wire. So I'm going to do my final wrap. I'm going to cut. And tuck it in. All right, so there is the earring number 1. All right. And there we go. So there is earring number 1. All right, now let's do earring number 2. I have a bunny licking my leg right now. All right, I am going to start my wire wrap. Again, start your wire wrap. Get it to that. Stick it on through. I like to keep my loopers in just because I find that it helps keep it more round. If you do wire wrapping, you can do it however you like. It's up to you. If you have a different technique. And again, I'm going to wrap it 3 times. Cut it as close to the wire as possible. And then just trying to scrunch it up a little bit. And then I am going to bend that in as tight as possible. I know you can't really see that on camera, but I'm just bending it in toward the wire. Just so there is no sharp edges, or as minimal sharp edges as possible. And see, that's still sharp. It's gonna bug me. First things first, I need to straighten this loop. It's a little better. All right. That's looking good. And now we're going to put our final beads on. And we are going to do 3 wraps. And I'm going to use my pliers for this. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And I am going to trim as close as I possibly can. And then we're going to tuck that in. Twist that just a hair, just so it's the way I need it. Get an ear wire, and we are about done. Where's my ear wires? There's... All right. I have a bunny under my feet that wants attention right now. Make sure it's hanging the right way. And there we go. There's earring number 2. All right, so we have 2 earrings and a necklace. Seabed Secrets. And it just does not want to stay. All right, let me move this stuff out of the way and we'll line it up for you. Oh, minus my... There you go. Seabed Secrets. So, what do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.